Yeah, I think it's. Oh, I think it's going. Yeah.
All right, but I suppose we better introduce ourselves and what we're going to be doing, shall we?
Yeah. Yeah.
Who would
Let's
like to
get
go
it.
first?
Uh, I guess. I guess I'll start. Yeah, I'm Javi, and we're just like covering elections and stuff. I know I'm specializing in the Netherlands election coming up, and then I know all of us are doing the U.S. primaries. So yeah.
Yeah. Hmm. Thank you, Javi. Do you all want me to go next, or Christian, do you want to go next and introduce yourself?
Oh, hi, I'm Christian, and we're going to be presenting. I'm going to be presenting the Argentinian election. So it's going to be this month, actually. I believe it's the October 22nd, the general election. And if no candidate receives 45% or more than 50%, then it goes to a runoff, a second round.
Nice.
Nice. Thanks, Christian. I guess I might as well introduce myself. So, I'm Andrew, and like Javi and Christian, I'm also a first year college student. And yeah, I together with Javi and Christian, I hope to bring coverage to elections occurring, or not just elections, but elections and political events occurring in the United States and in other countries. Because politics is something that we should be having fundamental conversations about, and it's very important in our lives.
Exactly. Couldn't have said it better. All right. So I guess now we'll like kind of just get the Australia not well, I mean the Australia voice and the New Zealand elections underway.
Yeah, I mean, results are already in. It's just a matter of which one you want to talk about first.
Um, I mean, I mean, if we were together, I probably would have like on a rock paper scissors. But I mean, I guess we could do that over Zoom. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
All right. You want to go? All right. All right. So
Sure.
it's basically if
Uh,
as Christian, you want to go?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So I guess wait. So if you win, then we do the voice.
New
But if
Zealand.
I win, it's the New Zealand or
Oh, yeah. Well, if I win, it's New Zealand. If you win, it's the Australian stuff.
yeah, and
okay.
I'll keep an eye on everything. I'll stay neutral.
Okay. Paper, scissors. Was it scissors or
All
rock
right.
paper?
Javi, you got
Rock paper,
scissors. What
scissors.
about you, Christian?
Oh, he got hit paper. I got rock.
Paper and rock. Okay, so Christian wins. So he
Yeah.
said that if he wins, he we'll start with the New Zealand election.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, let's do it. All right. So first things first, I think we might as well tell the news about the New Zealand election. So after 6 years of the Labour Party being the ruling governing party, National Party leader Christopher Luxon has defeated the Labour Party and its leader Chris Hipkins in a general election.
The,
It's
I don't
interesting.
have a what?
Oh, it's interesting because I remember like in 2019 or 2020, there used to be a woman that was like the prime minister in New Zealand, and she won like a straight majority. Like she won in a very good percentage of the vote.
Yeah,
And now just 2 years later, 3 years later, and that party's gone.
Yeah, that's certainly interesting because like during the COVID pandemic, Jacinda Ardern, that's her name. Jacinda Ardern was
yeah,
like very popular with her COVID management, but then I guess she kind of resigned, and then Chris Hipkins is in charge, and then from what I've heard, economic woes and inflation, I guess, have contributed to the rise in popularity for the National Party.
yeah. And I would just say that whenever there's an election, there's a big chance that the opposition would win an election that's going to happen during the time of an election. And although it was interesting to note that for a good chunk of time when New Zealand was in recession and it was prior to the election, Chris Hipkins was maintained a higher popularity rating, at least from a personal standpoint, compared with Christopher Luxon. And I think he kept that trend on for a significantly longer time than I would have expected. Of course, Christopher Luxon actually took over Chris Hipkins as the more popular candidate between the two of them. But yeah, still quite impressive. Let me see if I can find a link with let me see if I can find a citation for that. I know where I found it, but I just need to verify.
Yeah. And then I guess in the meantime, I've kind of looked at the basic composition of the parliament. Um, but yeah, I think in the 2020 election, believe that the Labour Party had at least a majority or very slim majority. But now that no party has a majority, but National Party has a plurality. So again, they may have to form a coalition with ACT, which is I guess, more libertarian right party. So they'll have to cooperate with them in government.
Yeah, I think it'll also be interesting to see what role New Zealand First Winston Peters' party plays in shaping government.
Yeah, because like I guess the um the New Zealand First, that's kind of more like right populist and nationalist party. So we'll have to see if the NZF will either moderate in order to cooperate and gain leverage, or because if I feel like if they maintain their kind of ideals in like in the center right or libertarian right coalition, the far right is not that far right nationalist party is not going to get anywhere. So they may have to either moderate their views or they will not collaborate with the national and act in government. And that's at least what I kind of take from that.
Sure. I mean, it's kind of interesting that you bring up the complexities of forming a coalition amongst those three parties. New Zealand First has actually put both conservative and more left-leaning governments into power. In fact, when Jacinda Ardern got elected as prime minister in 2017, she actually did so with the help of New Zealand First. As for the role that New Zealand First has played in governments it's helped form, and what I expect it to play in the future in this coming government, if it does play a role, is it will help stop legislation, or it will make sure it stops legislation it doesn't want. However, it won't necessarily get much legislation they want. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Kinda, yeah. I mean, they're gonna be like instrumental in helping the coalition. Let's see. I think I basically I know I have the page set up where it has all the like legislative makeup. So I'm just gonna like share my screen real quick. Uh, okay. So yeah, we scroll down here, and so as we can see, there's no majority, unlike what Labour Party had before the election, because they had 51.7%. And now Christopher Luxon's National Party has 41.3%, followed by Labour with 28%. So yeah, if the National Party wants to like have a majority, they're gonna have to collaborate with ACT, which will bring them to more than 50%. I mean, they don't necessarily need New Zealand First to reach the majority, but if they want to get more stuff passed, then they are going to need the help of New Zealand First, which will probably bring them to about 56% of the seats. Um, it's kind of, I guess that's really it right now. We have more news and stuff. New Zealand's Conservative National Party trounces Labour, basically more of the same stuff. So yeah, we're kind of seeing that development.
Yeah. I mean, I want to go quickly back to the popularity rating among the between Chris Hipkins and Christopher Luxon. So I was trying to find a citation. where I was finding this data was on Wikipedia. They had this data curation of various polls of data from various polling organizations such as One News, Varian, and also News Hub and Read Research. That was another one. Talbot Mills was one of them. Yeah, I can share my. I'll try to share my screen and see if we could get that link.
That sounds good.
Yeah. In the meantime, we can talk about something else.
Oh, the speaker. It was a disaster for us right now. We still don't have a speaker. 11 days without a speaker. McCarthy's out and Scalise is out. It looks like Jordan will be the next speaker.
Yeah, oh my God, this is just like it's a
Yeah.
cluster fudge for governments without like because then without a speaker we can't really advance legislation and we can't get foreign aid to like Ukraine and other countries and we can't really do much. So yeah, it's gonna be very tough for our government. Yeah. Well, it's I think ultimately Republicans will either like just want a speaker, so they'll vote for Jim Jordan, or Jim Jordan may strike a deal with the more moderate Republican House of Representatives. But I think ultimately people just are sick of like not having a speaker, so they're just gonna vote for Jim Jordan.
Yeah, we need a speaker right now with what's happening in Israel and Palestine right now. This disaster. We need a speaker. Without a speaker, the government doesn't work. And the thing is, in November, that's the deadline for another government shutdown. So they have to pass another appropriations bill that funds the government for November. So that's why you need a speaker for, or else there's a government shutdown in November.
Yeah,
And then that's even more scripts.
yeah. I mean, it was the reason why they were able to get something passed when McCarthy was speaker was because he made a deal with Democrats, but that turned out to be lethal to his speakership because he got voted out. And as for the link that I was looking for the New Zealand election, I have it. I'll see if I can successfully share it with you guys.
Mhm.
Yeah, can you see
Oh,
it?
yep. Yep.
All right, so I'm on Wikipedia, and where I was finding the data when I was talking about the popularity that Chris Hipkins had versus Christopher Luxon, go to preferred prime minister, and then you would see this graph, which shows red shows the popularity percentage support of the Labour Party candidate, and then blue shows National Party support candidate support, and then yellow it's ACT New Zealand, black is New Zealand First. Yeah, that's it. But the data I was primarily paying attention to was what's down below. So see here how it says date, polling organization, sample size, and then Hipkins and Luxon. I know it has some data on other candidates, but I was primarily focused on Hipkins and Luxon, and I found that most important because I knew that in this election that just happened, it would have either been another government ran by Chris Hipkins or a government ran by Christopher Luxon, and the latter turned out to be the case. What New Zealanders elected. So this data it shows that Hipkins was initially more popular than Luxon. Yeah, starting in January, initially more popular, and then throughout the year up until about June, July, he was having a pretty good run there. But then Luxon started tying with Hipkins, and then Hipkins actually kept going a little bit forward, but and maintained an edge on the popularity polls. But no, Luxon ended up either tying with him or replacing him as the more popular candidate, and that trend just continued until the election. I think whenever an opposition leader candidate in those circumstances ends up becoming more popular than the incumbent, that's a sign that the opposition candidate's going to end up winning that election and the incumbent's going their party's going to be defeated.
Yeah. I mean, That's yeah, just it shows like although like I noticed that like the margins between the two are pretty like very close because in the 6 to 10 October one it's like Hipkins 22.2 to Luxon's 23.6 and it's usually within like 1 point or 2 point margins except for the 17 to 23rd September because that's like a 5 point margin practically. So that's a very like very wide margin, but most cases I just see from this data that Hipkins' popularity is within 1 or 2 points more than no Luxon's I'm sorry Luxon's popularity is 1 to 2 points above Hipkins.
So, do you want me to keep the screen open, or do you think that we can, or do you want me to close it now?
I mean, unless we finished everything, I mean, if we finished everything here, like about the polling data and stuff, I think we might be able to close it. But if we have more stuff in the article that could like, I guess, kind of enhance our discussion, uh, I think we can pull up that other data. But again, it's like whether we have all the data we need here.
Yeah. Christian, do you have anything to say about this?
Yeah, so even though both of them were kind of like tied in popularity, remember that this is not a presidential system. This is a parliamentary system, which means, yeah, even if Hippins was more popular than Luxon, at the end it's each representative in each district. So whoever wins the majority of the seats wins, not the majority of the popular vote. And also, what happened with these results, with these shocking results, could be attributed as a punishment vote against the government itself. Like people may have liked Hipkins more than Luxon, but he is still part of the Labor Party government, and it was a punishment vote, which is why the opposition won because of the economy, the inflation, massive immigration, from those like Middle East countries. So that allowed Luxon and his candidates to get more seats.
That's certainly a valid explanation for why Luxon won, especially because just up until recently, like Luxon's been like no, not Luxon, Hipkins has been dominating the opinion polling until just recently. So that certainly could be a valid explanation for why Luxon was able to pull ahead to like I guess pull ahead so close to the election because because of the punishment vote for all that.
Any anything else you want to explore in regard to this data, or do you think I can take it off my screen?
I think we've covered it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah.
Let me see if I can get it. All right.
Yep. All good.
Sounds good. Anything else you want to talk about pertaining to the New Zealand election, or do you want to move on to the Australian voice referendum?
One last thing. So far, I see that no party actually got a majority, but the Conservatives got a plurality. But how it works in parliamentary systems is that each party, like there's a whole vote, like for the speaker here, like there's like a whole vote. So I believe he will need to deal with some populist party. I'm not sure if he just gets the Libertarians, if the Conservatives and Libertarians are together, I'm not sure he will get the votes to become the next prime minister. So he'll have to deal obviously with extreme right and the populist party in New Zealand to get legislation done and to get a prime minister there. Even if he is not in the extreme right, he'll have to deal with them so he can actually pass laws and to be able to cut taxes, deregulate, and try to bring inflation down. That the Labor Party brought up when they were like giving out that rate, out that aid during COVID to some people. When people have a lot of money, that money loses its value and that increases prices.
Yeah. So I guess kind of we'll see what happens if uh Luxon is able to make a deal with the the right parties and we'll see what the developments are I guess coming on off of the election.
Yeah. We'll provide any updates as needed. But for now, do you guys want to move on to the voice referendum, or anything else to
Sure.
say
Yeah,
about New Zealand?
I think we can move on to like the voice referendum.
Yeah.
Okay, so who wants to lay down the issue? Just contextualize it.
Wasn't the one about the referendum? Wasn't the one that you talked to me about, like indigenous groups in Congress or something?
I think it was, yeah, I think I referenced it to you a few times. It was about a revision to the Constitution of Australia to create this parliamentary voice to bring about some representation for Indigenous Australians.
Did it pass?
No, it didn't pass.
I told you it wouldn't pass. I remember that you asked me when I was getting Chinese food. I told you it would be easier if, if kangaroos or something like that would get representation in Congress. I told you it wouldn't pass. It was right.
I mean, you said it was quite. You said during that conversation it was going to be quite close,
Yeah.
and that it would depend on voter turnout. Australia generally has a much higher voter turnout compared with countries such as the United States. So it'll be interesting. So we need to perhaps do some research as to what voter turnout was for the referendum.
Yeah, and I do also remember when you told me about the what was it, the voice referendum. There was some opposition amongst some high profile Aborigine groups. I remember there was one lady who was I guess you compared her to like was it Candace Owens in the
Yeah,
US.
yeah. Her name's Jacinta Price.
Yeah, Jacinta Price. So she was for Aborigine campaigning against the voice referendum for I would assume about like I guess I remember like for much the same reasons as Candace Owens in the United States, because in the United States, Candace Owens is focused on this thing called Blexit, which is advocating for African American voters to leave the Democratic Party in favor of the Republican Party. So I would assume that this voice referendum from Jacinta Price is about kind of like I guess, incompatibility between interests and the current government of Australia. So I would assume that based on that premise, she would be able to at least be instrumental in swaying the vote to no.
Yeah, and it's funny that you bring about how Candace Owens is advocating for African American voters to leave the Democratic Party when you compare Owens to Price, because I'm not totally sure about the statistics when it comes to how Aboriginal Australians vote and their voting patterns, or as and whether they're voting more for Labor or more for Liberal than they had during previous times. But I can remember one prominent Aboriginal Australian member of the Liberal Party. Liberal Party is a more conservative party in Australia, but this prominent Aboriginal member, Ken Wyatt, he actually left the Liberal Party because of its opposition to the Voice campaign. Wyatt was in favor of having the Voice in Parliament.
Yes, I guess they're in terms of the Aborigine, I guess Aborigine like major figures. I guess this kind of you have both, liberal advocates and labor advocates, so it's kind of, I guess, a mixed bag when it comes to um this referendum.
Yeah, I want to keep going and discussing about Ken Wyatt.
Yeah.
I was thinking about how he left the Liberal Party because of this, because of them having an opposing view on the referendum to the view he had. It kept me thinking about whether Ken Wyatt is in some ways Australia's answer to someone like Liz Cheney in the United States when she sort of broke away from Republicans over January 6th. Christian Hobby, do you see any similarities between Cheney and Wyatt?
Yeah, I see them. Like there's some members that break over with their party for some issues. But I just check and the vote wasn't even close. Like that vote about the representation failed 60-40, technically. It wasn't even
Yeah.
close. That's a 20% margin out of the 6 states. So in Australia there are 6 states, six provinces. All of them said no. The closest one was Victoria province, which had like a 45% that said yes and 55 that said no. But other than that, it failed miserably.
Yeah.
That's quite surprising margin because I would have thought that more people would be in favor of having Aborigine populations be represented in the parliament, but I guess that wasn't really the case. Oh, it says my meeting will end in 10 minutes. See, I don't have the premium plan, but yeah,
Yeah. Oh. So does that mean we need to conclude our session?
I guess we could. I mean, I still have like 9 minutes, 40 seconds.
Okay, we can keep chatting for the remainder of that time if that's all right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to talk about Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese's future this amid this defeat of his, because he was a he and the Labour Party, the party he leads, party he's a part of, they were huge proponents of supporting the voice, and yet it failed quite miserably. People voted no by a 20% margin more than they voted yes. What do you think about this?
Well, I believe I know why. I mean, so there is maybe a reason why they voted that way is because there's almost no indigenous population in Australia either way. Whether you want to give forced representation to like 2% to the population, like do you want 2% of the population of your country to be like a holdout on issues? I mean, I can understand that in some like maybe at the state level, like in the states legislatures, but at the federal level, like I mean, there are almost no indigenous people left in Australia. So why give a super minority representation? Is just going to be like they will not represent almost anybody. Representation is supposed to be like a person talks on behalf of a big group of people. But the thing is, there are almost no indigenous people over there. So why do you give representation to a super minority? Makes no sense.
I think perhaps that it probably would have been more successful if the voice was implemented in like on a federal level, not like a central level, but like on a federal level. So like where you have the 6 states and you give the voice to each of those state legislatures. I feel like that probably would have worked out a bit better. I'm not sure. I'm not totally sure if that would have still succeeded, but probably would have worked a bit better in some other states.
Yeah. As for the future of Prime Minister Anthony Albanese, I still think Labour will win the 2025 election based on how the polls have been shaping up, because they've been having quite significant leads so far ever since Labour and Anthony Albanese got into power in the 2022 general election in Australia. And they've been trailing the Liberal Party and National Party, the Liberal National Coalition, by a good number of points. That lead might reduce because of the success of the no vote, something the Liberal National Coalition's been backing. But yeah, that's my take on it.
Yeah, although I guess my kind of appraisal of the situation is that it might damage Albanese's popularity, like probably maybe in like the short term, because like, but like because like you agree, I agree, Andrew. Like he probably is going to keep his I guess his status in the 2025 elections, but I guess for right now, it's going to damage his popularity because he was like totally behind this measure that utterly failed. So that might not look too good for him in the short term, but overall, I think if Albanese is able to like make, stuff that is popular with the Australian people and continues to make good decisions, then he may be able to, keep his status in the 2025 elections.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see any obvious successors to Anthony Albanese at this stage. I could potentially research this. I don't see any talk about replacements for Prime Minister Albanese based on what I'm looking on the internet. No, I don't.
Yeah, because like I think if his popularity is not doing good right now in the polls, then there might be some speculation about who would replace him. But as there's no talk about uh like a successor or whatever, then I think it might show that he's doing all right. I'm gonna just pull a quick pull up a search about Anthony Albanese's popularity.
Yeah. It would also be interesting to see how it affects Australia's opposition leader, Peter Dutton.
Let's see.
See whether this is a boost for Peter Dutton's popularity, because he's been lagging behind in popularity ever since he became opposition leader. This is probably one of his party's first big victories.
Yeah, this might get leverage to Albanese, especially not Albanese, to his opponent, because I'm presuming that Albanese's opponent was campaigning against Voice, and if the Voice failed so spectacularly, then it might get him some leverage. For how
Yeah,
long, I don't know, but he's sure to have some leverage right now.
yeah. And I think another event that could gain some traction for Dutton is the Queensland Premier election. So, premier in being a premier in Australia is kind of like being a governor in the United States. There's going to be an election to determine who the premier will be in 2024. The current premier is part of the Labour Party, but so far, based on many polls, her Liberal National Party coalition opponent has been leading her, and a lot of it's due to one, increasing crime in Queensland, or concerns about increasing crime, and two, just the fact that the premier's been in power for a good amount of time, like 8 years. So I'll leave it up to you two for any more comments.
Yeah, that'll certainly like contribute to his decreasing popularity of the crime and the amount of time he spent in office. So that's certainly going to contribute to his opponent's, I guess, traction.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'd say it'd be a big boost for the Liberal National Party coalition, and probably maybe some decline for the Labour Party. But we'll have to see. I'm talking about stuff that's going to happen in the future. A few months is a long time in politics.
As
Yeah.
long as there are no more referendums in Australia before the election for the next prime minister, he should be all right. But if there's like another referendum, just like a month before the next elections for prime minister, and he loses the referendum, then he's done.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
he's just gotta keep the polls good and all that.
Oh, and guys, oh wow, come on, we have just a minute and 30 seconds. So I would just give you an insight of the current polling right now for my country, for Argentina right now. So
Yep.
so far, the extreme libertarian right candidate Javier Milei is in first place, leading the polls. He has between 32 to 35% of the popular vote. He wouldn't win in the first round though, so he would go to a second round. Now the current Minister of Economy, Sergio Massa, he who controls the Peronist, the representative of the Peronist coalition right now, he has between a 28 and 32%, and the center-right candidate, Patricia Bullrich, gets between 25 and 27, so she would be out of the second round. So the second round, which would be held, I believe, in November, would be between Javier Milei, an extreme right anarcho-capitalist libertarian candidate who said he was going to, destroy the central bank of Argentina, versus the current Peronist party that created 2 more million people in poverty and 144 inflation rate monthly by month. People cannot afford to even drink like some meat or some like that tea that Argentina is drinking right now. It's a disaster now. Like some members of the current government have gone to like Spain.
Hi everyone, thank you very much for watching our election video or political video. It was a pleasure that you were able to watch it, and just want to let you know that looks like we will also be doing a video on the Argentinian election. Christian was making some references to the Argentinian election, and it'll just be interesting to see what happens. Christian gave some statistics showing Javier Milei, the more libertarian candidate in the Argentinian election, leading, and other candidates behind. So it'll be quite interesting to see what happens to Argentina and what happens to those candidates. In the meantime, if you like this video, please make sure to keep up with our other videos that we'll be posting, and we'll be sure to let you know when they're coming. Thank you. Bye.